So thank you. So we are going to take up another aspect of teaching learning that is an integral part of teaching learning process and referred to as assessment. As teachers, we carry out assessment of students' performance by using variety of methods. But if we try to examine the existing system of assessment that is followed in each institution, whether we talk in terms of technical institution or we talk in terms of general education, there are a number of issues. And national education policy, which came into being in 2020, also made significant recommendations about the assessment of student performance. So, to begin with, let us take up, I hope both of you might have read that policy because that is what the changes we are trying to bring into the system. So let me share with you the major which I think I should share in this session with, and then we can continue with answering few questions with respect to what is assessment, that is the concept, how do we understand this concept of assessment? Are there different types of assessment? And finally, maybe there are different methods which are used. In addition to that, maybe I'll focus on the characteristics of good assessment. So just look at that the very first drawback which has been pointed out by the national education policy is that there is less emphasis on the development of higher cognitive skills. When we say cognitive skills, we are talking in terms of the ability to analyze, ability to evaluate, ability to solve problems. These are the higher level of abilities which have been found lacking among the students. And we have carried out few studies which clearly indicate that the assessment which is in vogue, primarily we assess the lower level abilities, that is learning outcomes at the remembering level and understanding level. So 80 to 85% of the focus is on assessing learning outcomes at the remembering and understanding level. Only 15 to 20% of the weightage is given to the outcomes at the higher level, that is application and higher than application level. And when we examine the general education system has not been trying to focus on learning outcomes, but technical education certainly these learning outcomes because of the accreditation process has been a requirement that we state learning outcomes for the program, for the courses, and then we try to align our teaching, learning and assessment procedure to the learning outcomes. But what has happened that not more than 25%, 20 to 25% of the courses, they have been accredited by the National Board of Accreditation. So that is an issue which has been identified by the National Education Policy also, and it has said that there is a need to revamp curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment. That means there are drawbacks in all these aspects, but primarily it is assessment which guides the teaching learning, and the students, they are only worried about taking or getting marks in the assessment rather than learning and having a deeper learning of the course. So that's where we need to relook into the assessment procedures. And it has been another recommendation made that criterion-based grading system that assess student achievement on the learning goals. So it is not going to be the norm referenced testing which we are carrying out, but it has to be with respect to the learning outcomes, and thus criterion referenced grading system need to be adopted. Maybe I'll explain later on. And then it has also recommended that instead of more emphasis on the end term evaluation or the midterm evaluation, one teacher must go in for formative assessment, which serves better purpose in improving the performance of the learner. And for that matter, it has also said that autonomy needs to be given to the faculty to innovate into the processes which are or methods which are used to assess the student performance. And integration of technology, because there are a number of reasons we have now large number of students in a class. Earlier it used to be 30, maximum 40, but then it rose to 80 also in some of the cases. And wherever there is clubbing of various disciplines, maybe we have more than 160 students sitting in the class where we are teaching the applied science subjects and so on. So integration of technology can help the teacher in finding some solutions to engage students in the classroom, assess them more frequently in the classroom, and also handle the large classes and provide them the feedback that may be. And if we shift to online or blended learning, then technology need to be integrated. And there are online assessment and examinations. So National Assessment Center or PARAK has been there. School boards have been there. National Testing Agency, they have identified that they should design and implement new system of assessment for the learners. And they have specifically referred to portfolio rubrics and standardized assessment, as well as the learning analytics, as well as assessment analytics, which need to be focused. So these are some of the recommendations. So my question to you is, why we need to carry out the assessment? Over to the audience members. Why we need to carry out the assessment? Ji. Ankan ji or Jatinder ji, would you like to say something? Why do we need to assess the student performance? What is the purpose it serves?
There are many benefits of the assessment. First of all, it is an attention gainer for our students,
Okay.
that for assessment, and they keep study and live on a track. And
Okay.
apart from that, we are also able to access the quality of students, that which student is good in which stream, and
Okay.
we give that particular student the direction in which he or she is good.
Right, right. Thank you so much. Over to Jatinder ma'am. Hello.
Ma'am, can you repeat your question?
Yeah. Why do we need to assess the performance of students? What is the purpose assessment serves?
Ma'am, to check whether we are able to obtain the learning outcomes.
Okay. So
Uh,
attainment of learning outcome
yes,
is one
definitely.
very
Yes,
important one.
yes.
Right. What else?
Even whether the practices and the aids we are using to teach the learner are in a good direction.
Okay, so methods of teaching
Definitely,
learning which are
definitely. The
adopted by
methods
the
is good.
teacher,
Yes,
right, their effectiveness can be gauged when we assess the performance of the
yes,
learner.
yes.
Very good, very good. When you say so, so there are a number of purposes. It is not only restricted to the things which we have said. Look, you can see that the very first purpose, the assessment. So, Mr. Ankan said it gains the attention of the learner or motivates the learner to learn the subject, learn the course, because they know they are going to be assessed. That's one aspect. But before a person starts a particular course, the teacher must see whether the learners who are sitting in the class whether they are ready for the course. That means we would like to determine what kind of knowledge, skills, and attitude the students are bringing to the classroom. Are they possessing the prerequisites which are needed to learn a particular topic or to learn a particular course? So it starts even before you start teaching the new course, new topic, you need to assess the prerequisites which are being possessed by the learners. And then, do the learner possess any prior knowledge or skill that you aim at developing? That means, for example, if I'm going to teach research methodology to my students, now there may be some students in the classroom who have acquired previous knowledge in the course which is new for them, that is research methodology. So I would like to know whether what I am going to teach, do they possess any amount of knowledge related to that particular topic, or the skill I'm going to enable them to acquire, do they possess to some level? That means, are they novice, or do they not have any kind of skill with them? Then are the learners achieving? This is Jatinder ji had said that this is one of the purposes which are served by assessment. That is, if you have the course outcomes stated, so 5 course outcomes, so are they achieving those learning outcomes? That is another purpose, and that will give you an idea. You will be able to monitor the progress of your learner and also provide them corrective feedback. As Ankan has said, that it is not only you can provide direction to the learner to improve or to facilitate the attainment of their learning outcomes, and that feedback is possible when we try to identify the strengths and weaknesses of our learner. So while the students are sitting in the class and you pose question, and then those questions are answered by your students, and you are able to see whether the understanding of the concept which you have explained has been understood, they have developed an understanding of that concept or not. And if there are certain misconceptions by the learners, then you can identify those misconceptions or misunderstanding which has been there with the learner. So strengths and weaknesses of the learners can be identified by asking a question, by giving them a task, practice task maybe you give, and you can see whether they have the ability to apply the learned knowledge in a new situation. So you can identify where they falter. So where is the weakness or the drawback with the learner? Then, do they experience any kind of difficulties? Maybe students, what are the learning difficulties faced by them? So maybe a student not good at when it comes to the multiplication or addition, or maybe the spellings, or maybe the student is not able to interpret the principles in applying in a new situation. So what kind of specific learning difficulties are faced by them? And another one is, out of the 10 or the 5 learning outcomes which have been specified, whether 3 have been attained by the learners, 2 have been attained by the learners, or he has attained all the 5. Because national education policy has also referred to criterion based grading. That means if there are 5 learning outcomes, it is competency based. That means all learners should possess that competence. So all learners must have all the 5 learning outcomes attained. So one need to find out to what extent they have been attained by the learner. Then which grade should be assigned to the learner. So even for grading purposes, because tomorrow the students are going to be in the society where the industry, other work organizations, or maybe the higher institutions of learning, they are going to take up. So you need to also grade and certify your learners with respect to those competencies. So even that grading is based on the assessment. Better is more emphasis what educational policy has said, that rather than grading and certifying to be emphasized and focused more, the teacher should focus more on improving the quality of learning with the learner, right? So that is where change and higher level abilities. Then what you understand by assessment? आप क्या समझते हो? Sorry, assessment होती क्या है? Yes, what is assessment? How would you interpret this assessment of students' performance? What we do? Yes? Any answer? Dr. Aruna, if you are there with us. Or any other participant? What is it, that assessment of student performance? Ji. Ankan ji? No answer? Jitinder? We all carry out assessment of students' performance. So how would you like to interpret this term, assessment?
It may be the change in behavior. It may be.
That is learning. Assess क्या करते हैं हम?
जज करते हैं उसका परफॉर्मेंस, जैसे कि वॉट एवर वी हैव गिवन सम टास्क, सम क्विज और सम असाइनमेंट, सम सेमिनार, what sort of skill he has obtained during our teaching learning process. We judge by assessment process.
Thank you. So assessment refers to the process of obtaining information about the student performance in simple words. And very aptly, you have said that whatever knowledge we are providing to them, we would like to know to what extent they've acquired that knowledge. We would like to know whether they are learning or not. Or in other words, it is also said that it refers to the methods, variety of methods which are used by the teacher to gain information or obtain information about the student's performance. So rightly said by Dr. Aruna that it involves or includes variety of methods which you use. It may be a class test, it may be, you can refer to here, that it may be the written test which we use. And these dominate the scene of assessment. Whenever we talk in terms of the assessment of student performance in theory, we have class tests and 3 class tests. Normally, this is the method which we adopt. 3 class tests, 2 bests are counted, and then maybe we have midterm test and in addition to that, or we may have the end term test which is there. And all these tests are written tests, which may be we have open book examination or we may have closed book examination. Now, when I say you may have open book examination, that means you are trying to assess the higher level abilities on the part of the learners, and you are trying to give them some assignment which is related to learning outcomes at the creating level. So they may design something, they may formulate a plan, they may design a component of a machine, or as you said, design of a building, architecture, or design. You can think of variety of situations. Maybe you have a case given to them of the monument and case maybe. So there can be different things which can be taken up. Open book examination. So a detailed case, and they may refer to any source and they can utilize that. Open book, where you have asked them to answer questions based on that case study. Then you may like to go in for a closed book examination, which we all know, and we are utilizing either selection type items or supply type items. When we say selection type items, we are referring to the true false item, the matching type items, the multiple choice items. And when it comes to or fill in the blanks, when we give options to them to select the option to fill in the blank, that may you include in the selection type. Otherwise, it becomes a supply type where options are not given. So otherwise, the tests which we are using are primarily closed book examination, where we are using these supply type and selection type, a mix of that. And you have short answer question, you have restricted response type question, answer type question, and extended answer type questions. So written tests are one of the methods which you use. Then come the quizzes. And quizzes are a small or a short 10 to 15, maybe multiple choice questions, or maybe you have five questions which are given to short answer. And it doesn't take more than 20 minutes or 25 minutes on the part of the learner to attempt that quiz. And that may be integrated in your teaching learning before you. Now, here you will see that quiz. You can assess the previous knowledge of the learner, the prerequisite knowledge the student must bring to the classroom, or quiz can be whatever you have taught today. Tomorrow, when you start the new topic, you can use a short quiz to find out whether the students have retained that knowledge or not. So quizzes as another. Assignments, rightly said by Dr. Aruna, this is one of the methods, and we may give 3 to 4 assignments within a semester to our students, or maybe there are short assignments given to the students from time to time. And assignments, maybe all assignments may not be graded, used for grading purposes, but some of the assignments or best assignment can be used for the grading purpose also. So assignments, they can be used without including them in the grades, just to make sure that students are able to learn. And assignments for grading purposes, maybe we are using for internal assessment of the learner. Then assignments at present, when we are giving to our learners, the questions normally are the same which we try to answer in the classroom, or the questions which are given at the end of the textbook. So one needs to think of how to improve upon the effectiveness of assignments. So can we think of giving them assignments not simply based upon the questions which we have answered or which are available in the book, because then students just copy the material or gather the material from the internet, synthesize that material and submit the assignment. So think of, can we integrate internet resources or journal resources or research into our assignment? Say there are journal articles which are related to the topic which I am teaching. So can I ask my student to go in for an assignment where they gather 5 research articles related to that topic and then draw conclusions on the basis of those 5 articles? But those 5 articles, either you can select, or they can, if there are abundance of literature available, then you can leave that they can pick up any 3 to 4 papers or 5 papers and then do that kind of analysis. Or, as I said, assignment can also be with respect to the case studies which have been used. Now see, you can use them as open book examination, you can use them as assignment, so you can improve upon the effectiveness. Another thing is, if you have a large number of students in the class and you are giving students, like 60 students are there, you are giving assignment which is individual, then 60 assignments you are getting to be assessed. Now, in this case, how do we minimize the burden on the part of the teacher? Rather than giving individual assignment, can we think of giving them group assignments, maybe 4 students or 5 students together, they take up this. And you certainly ask them to divide the assignment into 4 to 5 parts so that each student contributes that. Another one is that there can be term papers. Term paper is to assess the comprehensive knowledge a student has got in that particular course which you are teaching. It is not term paper written test. It is not that. It is a comprehensive knowledge which the student has acquired in the course. And this term paper is to be submitted by the learner towards the end of the course. And this will show whether the student has understood the various concepts, principles, and so on. Then project work is another method which is very important. Project work can be utilized to assess higher level abilities, ability to apply and solve problems. And project work requires application of the learned knowledge, right? So whatever they have knowledge they have acquired with respect to concepts, principles, procedures, theories, models, techniques, etc., they are getting a chance to apply that. Only thing which we need to focus on is this has been a part of the technical education system projects. But the way the projects are selected and the projects are carried out, that needs to be changed. The problems which we are taking up for the project work, what a national education policy has also said that we have adopted 17 sustainable development goals. Now, can we link our projects with one of those sustainable development goals? So when you say civil engineering, so can we think of taking up a project which is related to developing infrastructure, urban infrastructure in rural areas, or improving the well-being of the society? Or we can talk in terms of water and sanitation. Can we think of, if I am from the electrical engineering, can I take up the projects related to maybe renewable sources, maybe smart classrooms, smart cities, etc., etc. Or architecture people can also think of taking up smart cities. So how to develop or design smart cities, smart rooms, and so on. Or how to design buildings where they are zero energy utilization buildings. So energy efficient buildings. So maybe I'm not getting an example from commercial art. One can think of SDG. How do you relate those to the SDGs? Maybe you can think in terms of improving the efficiency and effectiveness of industry, and you can think in terms of advertisements, and you can think of packaging, where you can think of recycling and then using the commercial art to propagate that. Maybe recycling of the waste, so even that aspect can be taken up. So project selection and the community interaction becomes very important for selection of the project, because the more the students are given an opportunity to interact with the community, maybe industry, other organization, the community nearby, they can identify the problems faced by them and prioritize and then link those problems with the SDGs and then take up the, so that means routine project work need to be avoided and something novel, unique, which is worthwhile for the student, for the organization, for the community, that needs to be taken up. And teacher must supervise, or if it is a project undertaken in the industry, maybe there is an industry personnel who is taking up that. I'm not going into details, but just hinting upon few problems. Then situational tests is another method of assessment which can be used. Situational test, as you have seen, that while the people get selected in the armed forces or the air force or the military forces, they undergo certain situational tests where they have to pass through the barbed wires, they have to scale a particular height, or they have to jump from a particular height, and so on. All these are nothing but situational tests. And these are very important when you really want to assess the physical strength of the person, the mental alertness of the person, and maybe the situational test help you to assess the ability to work in teams, to show the leadership skills. So soft skills, they can be tested with the help of situational test. Then you see the rubrics. I'll say at present the objectivity is less. There's more subjectivity which has crept into our assessment, and there is a need to design and develop rubric for enhancing the objectivities of the assessment. Rubrics are nothing but scoring procedures. Now, for example, if I have assignment given to the student, now what are the major aspects which I am going to evaluate? Maybe I am going to evaluate inclusion of the various parts of the assignment, whether the student has included all the aspects, how many resources the students have accessed from the, whether they have accessed textbooks, journals, encyclopedias, etc., or is it only limited to one textbook or one journal source? Maybe I'm more interested in how the content has been sequenced and organized. Is there a flow? Is there a continuity? Is there proper alignment of the various parts of the assignment? And if there are illustrations which are to be used in assignment, maybe quality of illustration become another component of analysis. So when I try to enlist that criteria and I share that criteria with my students, they already know how they are going to be assessed. So it brings more objectivity in the assessment procedure. So rubrics can be prepared for number of things like assignment, term paper, project work, or they can be prepared for a case study analysis, as we have discussed the other day, that case studies can be taken up. Then another method which is used at the master's level is the dissertation and thesis. And this is where the student takes up a problem and tries to find a solution to the problem, and they submit the thesis. And we all know there is a internal assessment which is carried out, or progress is monitored by the guide as well as the some of the internal members of committee which has been constituted. Then there is end term evaluation of the report of submitted by the student and the viva voce. So presentation and viva voce takes place. So this is how we are taking assessment of our learners. Presentations are made by the students on the various topics, or maybe they've gone to industrial visit and when they come back, they prepare a small presentation, what they have seen, what they have learned, what information they have acquired about the industry, maybe what was the organizational structure, what kind of products are being produced, what kind of services are produced, what are the processes in place, what are the management processes in place, and how the industry is trying to improve upon the efficiency, if that has been the focus in the industrial visit, right? Then we take viva voce of our students, which may become a part of dissertation and thesis also, and viva voce at the end of the practical work also. So, viva voce at present, while the students are performing the practical work and the teacher goes to each student to find out the knowledge which he has or the step which is being performed, does he have the reasoning why this needs to be done in the same manner, or why safety precautions need to be taken. So viva voce can be taken by the teacher while the students are performing, and he can monitor the progress of the learner. And then you have performance tests. So when your students are given performance test in the form of lab experiment, workshop exercise, field survey, these are nothing but referred to as performance test, where you test the ability to do something. Then comes surveys. Now, this is another method where you are not assessing student performance directly, but you are trying to gather the perception of the students or teachers or the alumni or the employers with respect to the competencies gained by our learners. Maybe you would like to have an employer survey to find out how your students are performing when they go to the industry. Or you may take a survey of your alumni, that how do they find the relevance of the course which they have undergone, the program which they have undergone. So you would like to have the perceptions of your alumni with respect to the curriculum, the instructional processes, the assessment processes. Even that can help you bring changes in curriculum, pedagogy, as well as assessment. Then interviews. You can interview. This is one of the techniques which you can use. You can use focused group discussions to identify the problems of the learner. Then see, there are some of the teaching methods which you can use in your class to engage your learners. But these methods can also be used to monitor the progress of your learners, the type of learning that is taking place, and you can identify their strengths and weaknesses. I'm only listing think, pair, share. You might have now in the previous week given the orientation with respect to active learning strategies. So think, pair, share, 1 minute paper, muddiest point, reversal questioning. These can help you to identify what are the aspects which they have understood, what are the aspects which they have not understood, and you can provide the corrective feedback, or you can supplement your teaching and improve upon the learning on the part of the learner. Then these days, because technology has been integrated, blogs which are text based, vlogs which are video based, like we have YouTube, and people do it yourself, or people in the tourism, people in the beauty, and you can think of how these visual, that is YouTube videos, can be used, can be integrated into the assessment. Can your students prepare, develop some videos, and they can have their vlogs where they can have series of videos assembled there related to the topics, related to the course which they are studying. Then minor project work. Major project work we all know. We have minor project work also, maybe which may vary from 1 day to 2 days to a weekend, minor project work which you have assigned to your students. So say for example, when the student, I think we have already dealt with that the students from like commercial art, and as you said, there is going to be advertisement campaign by a particular company. So they are organizing maybe exhibition. So ask the student to go to the exhibition, then collect some relevant information, do the analysis. When they come back to the class, they collate the information. So if you are sending 20 students, they are getting different bits and pieces of information. They collate that information in the class and try to understand the basis of that advertisement or the exhibition which have been put to make the customer aware of the products and services and so on. So that may be one of the advertisement campaigns by the e-portfolios. E-portfolios are the collection of the work done by the learner in a digital form. So students' best test paper, best assignment could be best or it could be progressive that student has joined today and you have given the first assignment. Within a semester, you have given the 4 assignment. So all those 4, and you should be able to see whether there has been positive change from the first assignment to the second to the third to the fourth assignment. So e-portfolios can be maintained by the learner. Only thing is you need to create a space where the students can upload their best work or upload their drawing work or upload the seminar presentations which they have made and so on. Concept maps are another technique. Questioning, let me not go to the details. This we have discussed, role play, seminar and group discussion, so I'm not going. Now, are you familiar with that there is not one type of assessment which is carried out by the teacher, but there are there are different types of assessment. Any idea of the audience members? Yes? Are you familiar with what kind of assessment is carried out by the teacher? G.
Hello, madam. Formative assessments, summative assessment.
Okay. What is the difference between the formative and the summative, Mr.
I,
Rohit?
I think summative assignment is taken at the end, and
Okay.
formative is at regular intervals we take.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Any other answer? He's absolutely right that the two most important, how do we classify the assessment? You can see formative assessment. Now, this formative assessment is also given a label assessment for learning. That is, it is carried out during the process of teaching learning. Now, when the students, I said you pose questioning, and you are not giving grades by posing questions. Your only purpose is to find out whatever you have taught, have they understood? You may pose question to check the previous knowledge of your learner, right? So questioning is one of the techniques which is used by each one of us, and we only try to find out whether the students are learning, whether they possess the previous knowledge, what is it that they have not understood, and it helps us to provide them the corrective feedback so as to improve upon their performance. Then there is summative assessment. The purpose of summative assessment is that it is also that is to find out to what extent the learning outcomes have been attained. Out of the 5, whether 4 have been attained, 3 have been attained, 2 have been attained, if it is criterion based assessment. If it is norm based, norm referenced assessment, as we are following, we are trying to compare the performance of one learner with the other. We are trying to determine the relative position of learner, who is first in class, who is second in class, who is third in class, who is at the 10th position, who is at the 50th position. This is referred to as norm referenced assessment. The other one is when we say out of the 5, 4 learning outcomes or the course outcomes have been attained, 1 has not been attained. So we are talking in terms of the proficiency level the person has acquired with respect to the course, and that is referred to as criterion based grading of the learner. So summative assessment is carried out at the end of the process. Now, here, one thing I would like to clarify, many of us have misconception that the class test, the midterm test, they are considered to be formative. No, they are not formative, but they are primarily used for summative purposes, and we are using that information for grading and certifying our students. So internal assessment marks, they are based on that, and that is utilized for grading in the final of that particular course. And this must be remembered. N-term certainly falls in the category of summative assessment. So then comes the placement assessment. Have you ever heard of placement? Anybody? Placement assessment is that there is an ongoing process, and we would like to know where the student needs to be placed in the course. Say, for example, whenever there is a school and a student wants to change the school, that is more common at the school level. And whenever the student goes to the new school says, okay, we'll first give the test to the learner and then find out whether he fits to be given admission in the 9th class, or whether he needs to be given admission to the 8th class. So school wants to test whether he's fit for class 9th or 8th. Then all your entrance tests, they serve this placement purpose, because there you try to determine whether the student is fit to be given admission to IIT, whether the student is fit to be given admission for the diploma program or a degree program, or whether the student is fit to be given admission for the medical. So that serves your placement assessment purpose. Then we have another kind of assessment which is known as diagnostic assessment. As you see, a student shows a poor performance in mathematics. Now, consistently he's showing poor performance, maybe in class test 1, 2, 3. Now you would like to know what is it that is hampering the performance of the learner. So you would like to identify the cause for the poor performance. And once you go for, or maybe the students always misspell the words wherever the vowel is there. So he misspells the word. So you would like to know why, whether the learning in the school or whether he has not understood the syntax, and what is it that is causing or leading to a problem. As you remember, tar is a main per. So there the teacher tries to identify the reason, and once that reason is identified, the proper remedial action needs to be taken up. The teacher can take if it's a simplified problem, but if the student needs to be referred to the specialist, then special assistance needs to be provided to the learner. So in nutshell, these days, even in the national education policy, the words they've used is assessment for learning and assessment of learning. So greater stress has to be on the assessment for learning, where we try to improve upon the learning on the part of the learner. Just to give you a quick purpose which is served. So formative evaluation, the purpose is to monitor the progress of learners, what they are learning, how they are learning, and identify the strengths and weaknesses. And on the basis, you are trying to provide them, give them direction, give them suggestions so that they can improve upon their performance. So this is what needs to be done in the education system. Summative assessment is used primarily for grading, certifying, and assessing the course effectiveness, to what extent the course aspect, how many students have graduated, how the course is rated by the learners. You can use that summative assessment. Then placement assessment, you can see that you can check the prerequisite knowledge and do they possess any of the knowledge skills that are the goals of the course. Now, second one, which I put here, may be relevant when we talk in terms of that the course, like you have massive open online courses. And those courses, you have divided them into the modules. Say you have module 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you have 6 modules. Now, if you give a placement assessment, it is not that all students go through module 1 to module 6, but a student who has acquired mastery over module 1, module 2, if given a pre-test, then on that basis, you can see where he needs to place. He can start at module 3 if he have already mastered module 1 and 2. So as you in programming, you say linear programming or branching programming. So branching programming can be used to place the students in the appropriate module, giving him credit for the modules he has already mastered. As in multi-point entry and credit system, we had recognized the previous learning on the part of the learners. So if a student with +2 is coming, right? You are allowing him to go for the first year. He can take admission in the second year of engineering degree after he has completed the diploma. That means you recognize the learning which has taken place for 3 years, you equate it with the first year of the degree program. So you determine the placement in the second year of the degree program. Then diagnostic, as I've said, identify the cause and suggest the corrective. Now, let me, before I say something on this, over to you. What is it that constitutes good assessment? What are some of the characteristics of good assessment? Over to the audience members. Any 1 point, 2 points which you can think? Yes. What is it that makes assessment good? G.
Continuous monitoring can be there.
Okay.
Regular, at
Continuous
regular intervals.
monitoring. Fine. Thank you. What else? One point. If you give me 4 points, I'll get. G. Jitinder ji. What is it that constitutes good assessment?
I think some remedial type of.
Okay, so corrective and the action on that.
Yes, action.
Right. Thank you. And over to me. Sorry, नाम ही भूल गई. हाँ जी. Dr. Aruna, would you like to say something? Ji. Aruna ji, you would like to say something? No? I think some problem with the virus. Just think, chalo. Anyway, the points which I've got, let's see. When we talk in terms of assessment, you might have come across the terms like validity, reliability, objectivity, practicality, and utility. Any idea? What is validity and what is reliability? Just let's clarify these two terms, G. Over to the audience members. How do we interpret validity and reliability? Dr. Rohit, can you clarify these two things? G.
Yes. Regarding, madam, please pardon.
Validity and reliability. What do we understand by these two terms? And what is validity and reliability? Uncle, G. क्या होती है validity, reliability? जी.
In research, we see the reliability tests
हाँ जी, हाँ
are
जी.
being conducted.
क्या मतलब होता है रिलायबिलिटी का? बिल्कुल तभी क्वेश्चन मैंने आपसे पूछा. मैनेजमेंट में we are more familiar with, but other people are, like when you talk of tools, you talk of calibration, you talk in terms of validity and reliability. जी.
Regarding data we use, whether the
हाँ,
data is
क्या?
reliable or not for test techniques are there. Cronbach alpha is being used for reliability
Okay, okay,
testing.
you're going to, okay. Now, say for example, I have a watch and it is giving me correct time as per the Indian Standard Time. Is my watch valid to give me time? Yes. I have a watch which is giving me time as per the Indian Standard Time. Is it is it valid for measuring time or not? Ji.
Ma'am, we are talking in perspective of assessment,
हाँ जी.
validation, and
Not validity.
validity, and there was two terms.
Reliability.
Reliability, yes. Validity and reliability. So my perspective is that no assessment is timeless. There is a validity period of that assessment, and after that time, that an updation is required, even for a student or in any case.
It is
So
not with respect to the time
Okay,
period.
ma'am, it's according to the assessment tool we are using for testing a particular trait.
Right,
Fine.
right,
So,
right.
I suppose if I want to evaluate some the higher objectives, higher order of Bloom taxonomy, then definitely I have to take the assignment as the assessment tool for as my assessment tool. But every tool is not same for every type of
Okay, you are close to it. So, in other words, validity refers to whether the test measures what it intends to measure. अगर आप क्लास टेस्ट दे रहे हैं और आपका पर्पस है टू मेजर द हायर लेवल एबिलिटीज ऑफ द लर्नर्स, then the nature of questions you include in that test must be at the problem solving level. In a new problem is given to the learner and he tries to solve that. If your purpose is that whether the person is able to retain the factual information, can he give the expand the acronym LAN, WAN? Can he define basic terms like computer, hardware, software? Can he define that? Is okay? Or you are saying that the person has understood the concepts. So whether he has understood the concept of design, whether he has understood the concept of programming, whether he has understood the concept of algorithms, or he has understood the concept of advertisement or poster. He understood the concept of how a poster can be explained. Can he explain the parameters of quality of an advertisement or the aspects of quality in an advertisement? Or when we talk in terms of management, we can think of many aspects. So if your purpose is, then the question would be at the remembering and understanding level. Now, say for explain the theory, Herzberg's theory of motivation. That is the question you are including. This is only understanding level. Now, I have given a small scenario where I say the employees within an organization, they are demotivated, and I give the scenario of the industry. Now I say how as a person, as a manager, which theory would you apply to improve upon the motivational level? So the students try to select a particular theory which is applicable, and they suggest the strategies to improve upon the motivational level of the employees. So that is at the application level. Or if they formulate the strategy, that may become at the creating level. So depending upon, so validity refers to whether the test measures what it intends to measure. So I was saying the watch, if it is giving me correct time, Indian Standard Time, it is a valid measure of time. If I have got a foot ruler, it measures 12 inches. So you take 10 pieces of foot ruler, you will find there may be minor errors here and there. But the one which is giving the exact 12 inches is the valid tool for measuring the length of something. So reliability, on the other hand, refers to the dependability of the scores. So can I depend upon the assessment which I carried out? Now here, validity, when you say, so adequate coverage, because we will be dealing with setting question papers, so I'll be going into more details. Validity means if you are 10 topics you have taught, and you have questions with respect to 10 topics, and all are compulsory. That means students is forced to learn all the 10 topics. If you are giving an external choice to the learner, attempt any 5 out of the 8 given. So first thing you are doing is you are including 8 topics. 2 students can leave. Out of the 8, 5 are to attempt it. So you can see, if you have a course which consists of 10 topics, you are giving 50% choice to the learner. They can learn only 50 to 60% of the syllabus and can get as high as 80 to 85% marks. Then there should be balance. The questions need to be at the remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating level, depending upon the nature of the course and its course outcomes. Then the language which we use, that also affects the validity. Whether the intention of the paper setter, they are conveyed to the learner. If that is correctly understood by the learner, then it is a valid question. Otherwise, it doesn't serve the purpose. We'll be going into details when I meet you on 25th. Reliability, on the other hand, refers to dependability. Dependability means on whom we can depend. The person who shows consistent behavior. And in case of assessment, it is the tool which gives us consistent scores if it is administered again and again on the same person. Now, say for example, you have given a class test. Today, the student gets 80 out of the 100. Tomorrow, you give the same test, the same student get 40 out of the 100. Can I depend upon the scores? No, I can't, because there is no correlation between the first set of scores and the second set of scores. So uh, it is said that reliability, now think of a case where you are going for re-evaluation. It may be an assignment, it may be a class test, it may be a project work which you are evaluating again after 10 to 15 days or maybe 1 month. If there is high correlation between the two sets of scores, then it has high inter-rater reliability. That means the same person is assessing the assessment or the class test or the project work again after 1 month, and there is high correlation. It refers to inter-rater reliability. Intra-rater reliability. And inter-rater is when you have more than one person evaluating the same thing. Now, say 2 examiner evaluating the same answer script. If there is marked difference between the two sets of scores, the test is said to have low reliability. And this is what is happening when the students go for re-evaluation. There is marked difference between the initial and the third examiner assessment. Then objectivity refers to the level of subjectivity that is there. That means if I do the scoring, another person does the scoring, or machine does the scoring. If for right answer there is 1, for a wrong answer there is 0, it has the maximum objectivity. But we do have short answers. We have restricted essay type questions. We also have extended essay type questions. Then we have subjectivity creeping into the scoring procedure. How do we minimize that subjectivity? The more objectivity you can build into any scoring procedure, the more reliable your assessment would be. So what I said, that rubrics can be used for various purposes, maybe in case of assignment, in presentation, seminar, group discussion, creativity, ability to work in teams, then project work, then thesis. You can design your rubric to enhance the objectivity of your scoring. Then comes practicality. Whatever assessment we plan, if that is implementable, it is feasible, then we say it has practicality. Now, say for example, as I was taking an example of practical work and the viva voce. Now, if you want to organize viva voce at the end of practical class, maybe you require another 3 to 4 hours. But while the students are performing and you go from one student to another, then it is feasible to organize the viva voce in the class for all the students while they are performing the experiment. Or say, for example, I want to test the ability to work in teams. Now I can, within a semester, maybe I'm able to give 4 to 5 situational tests, or maybe 2 to 3, organize such activities where the students need to work with others and work as a team. But I cannot think of having this activity of assessment on a continuous basis. Maybe that requires more time. So giving every day an activity to the learner to observe him work, assess his ability to work in team may not be feasible for me. Like ma'am, Dr. Aruna said, we have 80 students and we had given individual presentations. So you require 80 days for students to make the presentations, right? So whether it is feasible, one has to look into, will there be time, adequate time available? Will there be adequate resources available to organize that kind of assessment? That is a big question mark. Then utility. How do I utilize the results of assessment? Assessment is not to be carried out for its own sake. It is not only for grading. No, so that means assessment, the results of assessment need to be utilized. So when I say assessment results need to be utilized, think of that I have given a class test, which is maybe a summative assessment. Now, how do I utilize the results? I try to find out the questions which were given, which are the questions where all students are able to get 70% and higher marks. Which are the questions where the students are able to get less than 40% of the marks? Where the maximum students are getting only 50, around 40 to 60% marks. Nobody gets more than 70% marks. Which is the question which has been left by all the students? Which is the question which has been attempted by all the students? So then I am trying to analyze what is that additional information that must be given to the learner. Or should I try to find out the reason why all the class members have left a particular question? Didn't they understand the topic? Did they found that topic more difficult in comparison to others? Or did they find that the topic was covered towards the end and they didn't have the time to prepare for that? So that's why they have left. So I tried to find out the reason and then try to take the corrective action. If they have not understood me, my method, or maybe they found my speed was very fast when I delivered that, and they were not able to keep pace with, do I need to again deal with the topic and supplement that topic so that they can acquire the knowledge? So, even test, or say for example, assignment. Now, I have given the assignment, I do the assessment, I evaluate each assignment, and then I come to the class. What was expected, the criteria was given in the form of rubric, and against that criteria I try to explain them what was lacking in different assignments and how students could improve upon that utility, right? So if I am only giving assignment back to my student with putting A plus, B or B minus, which many of the teachers, when they go for the evaluating the sheets, I was looking at that was a course in the Women Polytechnic textile designing, and students have prepared different designs, and there only I found that the grading was available, and I asked the student why teacher has given A in one sheet and B minus in another. She said she liked that design very much and that's why she has given minus A. But what is it that she liked that was not known to the learner? So try to have rubric and you will improve the kind of feedback, because rubric also provide the description of behavior which is labeled as excellent or labeled as poor or labeled as average. The student gets pinpointed feedback on the basis of rubric. So the utility of the assessment improves if you are able to use the rubric and give that, or you give your detailed comments on the assignment to the learner, even if rubric is not, and you are giving detailed comments with respect to what was appropriate, what was adequately covered, what was lacking, where the continuity was missing, and what additions could be made to the assignments and so, or what additional resources could be utilized. So that way you will be able to improve upon the performance of the learner. And another one you can add to this is the transparency, which is not here, that whatever assessment we are going to do, we must provide that information to our learners beforehand. And once they are aware of how they are going to be assessed, then certainly their performance will improve. So I hope the concept, when we say assessment, it refers to variety of methods and procedures used to collect information about the student performance. And when it comes to, there are different types of assessment. So one can categorize assessment into formative assessment, summative assessment, placement assessment, and diagnostic. Formative also refer to assessment for learning. The sole purpose is to improve upon the quality of learning on the part of the learners. And here the teacher needs to use formative assessment not for grading purposes, but for identifying the strengths and weaknesses of the learners, and then trying to provide them correctives and ensure that student learning improves upon. And summative assessment is carried out at the end of the process. That means it is not during the teaching learning process. So class test, mid-semester test, your end term test, your performance test, which you do at the end, they are all part of, or maybe term paper or comprehensive viva voce, which you take at the end of the course. Maybe that is used for grading purposes or dissertation and thesis, etc. Summative, they are used for grading and certifying the learners. And they also help us in determining the course effectiveness. Then diagnostic, identifying the causes for failure or the problems faced by the learners in showing a performance in a particular course or a particular topic or a particular aspect of the course. And then referring the person to the specialist if need be, thus improving the performance. Then comes your placement, where the student needs to be placed in a program. That is the decision which you need to take into. And good career assessment, as you can see, refers to that it must adhere to these 5 characteristics: validity, it must be valid, reliable, objective, practicable or feasible, and it must have utility for the teacher, for the administrator, for the student, and for the society. So I stop here.